Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today, I'm giving you guys a little bonus video for the week. I still have another one coming out Friday, but I wanted to make this video today because there's been a lot of news that dropped in the past week. And so I figured let's throw it back to the good old Overwatch Weekly days and do a little news recap for not just the Overwatch League, but also Overwatch 2, because there were a lot of big things that happened this week, and I want to talk about them because they are pretty important to the future of the game and the league. League more immediate future, but there is other stuff kind of coming forward as well. So let's start with the first story that I want to cover, which is that Geoff Goodman, the lead hero designer of Overwatch, has left Blizzard. He is no longer with the company, and as a result, obviously no longer with the Overwatch team. I'm going to be reading this article from PCGamer.com. I will have a link to it in the description, as I always do, or always did with these types of videos, but let's go through it real quick. They say in the article that the lead hero designer behind Overwatch's huge roster of characters has left Blizzard, the company confirmed to PC Gamer. Geoff Goodman, quote, made the decision to leave Blizzard earlier this year, end quote, a Blizzard spokesperson said. The last public appearance by Goodman was in a group interview with press in June, and Blizzard provided a statement about Goodman's departure, saying, quote, we thank Geoff for his many years of service at Blizzard and wish him all the best. His ability to bring to life Overwatch's diverse hero roster through gameplay has been incredible, and the mark he's left on the Warcraft and Overwatch teams will be felt for years to come. End quote. So, a lot of things that they kind of continue on here in this article. They talk about his history with the Overwatch team, how he goes back all the way to before it was known as Overwatch, when it was Project Titan, which was then canceled and resurrected into the team-based shootout launch in 2016. They say here, outside of the game's former director Jeff Kaplan, who left Blizzard in 2021, Goodman is one of the few faces of Overwatch frequently asked to discuss balance changes and new heroes in interviews and events. He helped design major reworks for Doomfist and Orisa, helped design Sojourn and Junker Queen, and they say here likely had a hand in several of the game's upcoming heroes, including Kiriko, and I'm sure he had a hand in a lot of the heroes that are coming for the next year or so. Then they go on to talk about the overall Blizzard turmoil, and they talk about the lawsuits a bit, saying another reason, or they didn't mention it specifically, but although no reason was given for why Goodman left, it comes after a series of high-profile Blizzard departures in the build-up and aftermath of the lawsuit filed by the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing for workplace harassment and discrimination last year. Overwatch's executive producer Chaco Sunny left the company in 2021, and producer Tracy Kennedy left last September. Obviously, there's been other departures as well, but those are kind of two of the bigger ones that have been mentioned, including, of course, Jeff Kaplan and now Geoff Goodman. They do have something that Geoff Goodman had said in a group interview back in April, where he said that the team made sure everyone was in a good spot and felt safe before returning to work on the game. He said it seems to be everyone's, much happier now and things are going forward, but I think it's still there and still lingers. It's definitely a morale hit. So if you want to check out this article, link to it in the description. That was most of what they talk about, but there are some things there if you did not, I didn't cover. So if you want to read it, link is in the description. But let's move on to some more official press release stuff from the Overwatch team. Of course, on Tuesday, obviously last week we got some of the announcements about Kiriko and the Battle Pass system. I made a video on that last week, so I'll link that if you want to check out that video. But today, I want to talk a bit about the Kiriko thing that they dropped on Tuesday, looking at her concept art, her playstyle, her origin story video, all that type of stuff. So I will link to those things in the description, but this article, this kind of blog post, is really just about talking about the history of Kiriko, her concept art, like I said, her abilities. They go into kind of depth a little bit, explaining some of her videos. There was a developer update about Kiriko. So all of those things I will link in the description if you did not see them. I feel like it's better just to watch those things, right? They talk about her abilities. I'll throw this image up here that kind of shows her abilities. If you want to look at them and see them, just so you kind of know what she has. But obviously with a new hero comes a lot of content about her. Like I said, there is a dev update on her if you want to see it. We also know there is an animated short for Kiriko that leaked online last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. I don't remember exactly what it was. But I'm still kind of waiting to see when we actually get that official announcement of that short. I wouldn't be surprised if it drops at the Overwatch League Grand Finals, because that is kind of around when BlizzCon would normally be, so I could see them dropping it there, either on the second day or the third day, or the second to last day or the finals day. That's my guess right now, but I don't know for sure. So yeah, that's the big Kiriko news. We have some stuff there. Let's jump in to the news that dropped yesterday, however, which was about tuning hero balance for launch. And they announced some changes to the hero balancing as we get towards launch from the second beta. Some of this stuff will be seen in the Overwatch League this weekend and this entire tournament cycle, though not all of it. So interesting stuff here to kind of pull from. But let's talk about the first thing here, which is them talking about their balancing philosophy a little bit. They say here, Overwatch 2 brings with it a new 9-week season cadence that will consistently introduce new maps, heroes, game modes, and more for players to experience. For heroes more specifically, our plan is to typically release a new hero every other season, which combined with our ongoing additions of new maps and game modes and our regular balance updates, should reward different strategies and playstyles, keeping the game fresh and dynamic for years to come. Importantly, each season will also see impactful hero balance changes as the season begins to support our goals of constantly balancing the game and keeping the live service feeling dynamic. This means new seasons will feel more distinct and special, with balance changing significantly when we move to the next season. We are also prepared to make additional balance adjustments if the need within a season arises to manage hero balance and power and keep our game feeling fair and fun. Then they go into the changes to the heroes going into the first beta, and some of them, like I said, will be in the Overwatch League Countdown Cup starting today. The big one on the top is Junker Queen. Obviously, Jote's meta was very, very strong in the most recent Overwatch League meta, and so Junker Queen getting a pretty major nerf, all to Commanding Shout, which was definitely her most overpowered ability. The allied health bonus was reduced from 100 to 50, so they cut that in half. The duration was reduced from 5 to 3 seconds. The temporary health no longer decays over its duration, so you have less that you get, but you don't have to worry about it kind of decaying like it did before, because you don't have that much anymore. And the cooldown is increased from 11 seconds to 15 seconds, so it really does hurt her ability to be way too overpowered. I could see them tweaking some of the stuff a little bit, but I think she's probably in a better spot, and I think she'll be fine. I don't think she'll be too overpowered. I also think that they kind of paired this change with another change, which is that temporary health now grants 50% reduced ultimate charge instead of 0 ultimate charge. Obviously, when you had the Commanding Shout up and your team had bonus health, and the team got 0 ult charge from that, that was pretty strong, and it made building ults take a while. I always thought Junker Queen took forever to build ults, and part of the reason why is probably because you were always running into over health on the other side. So I think these are good changes that will help the game feel better and will not make Junker Queen too overpowered. Obviously, we haven't seen the Overwatch League meta yet as of me recording this, but I think it's very likely, and I think that we'll see a much more diverse meta with way less kind of oppressive play out of Junker Queen. Another change they made, which is interesting, is that they changed the damage roll passive. So before, obviously the original passive was a 10% speed boost. They changed that to a passive where when you change heroes on the damage roll, you can refund up to 30% of your ultimate charge. They are changing it again, this time making the new passive that eliminations grant 25% increased reload and movement speed for 2.5 seconds. And it does not stack with itself, but it will refresh the duration. I don't really like this change. for a number of reasons. And I think there were some points that really kind of made it best. I think it was Reinforce who put it best, if I recall correctly. I'll put his tweet up on the screen, though. The thing with passives is that passives in the past have addressed weaknesses, right? Tanks, one of the problems was they're meant to make space, and they basically are big things you can shoot. So they gave up way too much ult charge. They were really easy to hit, and they got knocked around too much. They couldn't really be effective. And so the way that they fixed that was they gave them all increased knockback, and the ult charge you gain from tanks is less than any other hero. Two changes that address their weaknesses. For supports, one of the weaknesses of supports is they're usually pretty squishy, and their goal is to support other players, supposed to heal other players. And so they don't really have the ability to kind of have that same survivability. They don't have the same escapability. They don't have the ability to really duel as much with some of those DPS heroes. And when you're healing, you can't heal yourself. Some heroes can, but not every hero has the ability to heal himself. And that requires using an ability that maybe you don't want to use. Maybe you're saving it for something, right? It doesn't feel nice to have to kind of worry about that, right? You should only have to use your ability to heal yourself in kind of a pinch. And so they added the passive to that they all heal themselves over time passively, right? But DPS heroes, these passives they've given them don't address weaknesses. They just make them all stronger, and in some cases kind of overpowered. This one in particular adds way too much power, I think, to the first elim, which Reinforce touches on as well. But first picks are going to be so important that it's just going to be really tough to actually see major kind of changes, or matches are going to be very, very determined by how by a DPS just popping off, right? Which is always nice, but like they're already popping off, like they're getting rewarded for doing well instead of addressing a weakness. And I've seen different suggestions. One of the ones I saw that I think is nice is that DPS heroes are kind of the thing that get picked a lot. Their first death a lot because they are aggressive and they're maybe not necessarily with healing. And so one of the ones I saw was they have a shorter respawn time, which I think would be a very nice change. I think it would cause problems because I think in some ways DPS having a shorter respawn time would lead to way more feeding and way more poor team coordination. But at a high level, it doesn't really matter because I think you would have less kind of issues with that. But it allows DPS players to play a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more kind of risky in a way that they can hopefully make some good advantages and take some kind of initiative and make big plays, not having to be too worried about getting picked or dying over kind of silly little things. So I think that will be a better passive for DPS, but this one to me just feels way too strong, and I think it's going to feel very oppressive. And I don't love that one. The ultimate charge passive is now going to be across all roles. So all heroes, regardless of role, refund up to 30% ultimate power on hero swap, which I think is the right move. If you go out on the wrong hero at the beginning, you have to readjust very quickly in a match. I like that change. I think it makes it better. I didn't like that it was just DPS, because once you start playing other roles, you start realizing, oh wow, I really wish I had that passive. Which I don't really feel that when it comes to like the tank passive or the support passive. I'm not like, oh, I wish I had this. But with the DPS passive, I was always like, oh, I wish I had this in other heroes, because it's just so strong. So that is those changes. Then there's other hero balance changes. A lot of them are buffs, a couple of nerfs, but not many. For Orisa, she had her base health increase from 250 to 275, and her base armor increased from 250 to 275. So an increase of 50 health total, health and armor. And her energy javelin cooldown was reduced from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. She had a really low win rate, which is the reason why they kind of made this change, to give her a higher win rate and maybe she'll get played more. For D.Va, they felt like her win rate was way too low and underperforming, so they gave her some buffs. Her booster impact damage was increased from 10 to 25. Her micro missiles cooldown was reduced from 8 seconds to 7 seconds. And her Comic ultimate cost was reduced by 12%, so you can spend less time out of mech, which I think with one tank is a way better change, because when you have one tank and it's a baby diva Lightyear. That's rough. So I like that they're making that change. For Brigitte, her Inspire duration is reduced from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. So the healing per second hasn't changed, but if you are not able to be as consistent with your ability to pop Inspire, if you're not doing as much damage or whatever, the effect will last less time. Batiste got a nice buff. His primary fire was increased from 24 to 25 in terms of damage, and the fall off range for his primary fire was increased from 20 to 25 for the minimum fall off range. So he'll be able to do more damage from all ranges, and he also has a little bit more range to his weapon. Mercy has some interesting changes. They changed the Guardian Angel again, where you can press crouch to launch you straight up, and now you can also use crouch to do angelic descent while airborne. The wording on here makes it sound like you can still also use jump, so you can use control or jump, but this makes it sound like instead of having to kind of use control to go up and then space to stay in the air, you can just use control to go up and then keep holding control to slow your descent, so you don't have to use as many buttons, which I think is a decent change. You don't have to do it, obviously, but you can if you want to. For Bastion, he got his Ironclad passive back, so he gets 20% damage reduction while transformed. I'm not surprised. He was just not that good, so they gave it back to him. Reaper, his Hellfire Shotgun spread is reduced from 8 to 7 degrees. That was huge in the alpha from a lot of reports, and so that means he'll probably be better again. Sojourn, the Railgun energy gained from non-player targets, so barriers or turrets, reduced by an additional 50%, so she'll still build it, but it won't be very fast. And Sombra's hack ability lockout duration was increased from 1 second to 1.75. So she hacks people for a little bit longer than she did before, but still not a super long time. Those are some pretty good balance changes. Most of these will be in the Overwatch League for this tournament cycle. I know the passive change won't be in the game, and obviously Kiriko won't be in the game. So only the DPS heroes will get that 30% ult thing. The other roles will not, and Kiriko won't be in the game. And the new DPS passive won't be in the game. Speaking of the Overwatch League, though, we did get the official announcement for the playoffs this week. I mentioned it in my video on Monday that, you know, we kind of had some reports of when the postseason would be happening, or at least where it would be happening. And we got the official announcement that it will be happening at the Anaheim Convention Center, the home of BlizzCon, from October 30th through November 4th, with in-person matches, like matches you can actually go to as a spectator, November 3rd and November 4th. Now, the schedule is a little interesting. A lot of people take issue with the fact that the grand finals and the lower bracket finals are happening on the same day. I actually like that, which I know is maybe a little, but I like it because a lot of the time, like last year's grand finals was a 4-map sweep, 2019 was a 4-map sweep, 2018 was pretty one-sided. 2020 was the best grand finals we've had in terms of actual game, but the in-person event wasn't really that, or wasn't an in-person event. So I like them doing the lower bracket finals and grand finals on the same day because I like the fact that fans in attendance will get to see at least 7 maps, right? And I think if you go and you only have 2 days, if grand finals is a 4-map sweep and you literally go for just 4 maps, it loses some of that luster. I think the excitement of the grand finals, having another game on the same day, is also that you go into that day with 3 teams still alive, and so there's room for another upset in there. I think it's a good thing. I know a lot of people don't love it, but I personally think it's a really good change and a really good move that I think will be a good overall thing. I think that when you have that many, when you have gone 3 years since an in-person Overwatch event, like a finals, I really think you need this day where you actually have a lot of matches to watch, and it's not just the one match. Because if it's the grand finals and it's like, let's just say it's like Shanghai versus the Gladiators, and the Gladiators 4-0 the Dragons, right? That's not necessarily what I think's gonna happen, but that's just like an example, right? If that was the grand finals and that was the only game that day, it would feel really bad. Like, even if it's a 3-0 and a 4-0, I would rather have that in person than just a 4-0 sweep, obviously. So I like that. I think it's nice. I think it means also, like, I think it gives that advantage again to the upper bracket team, which has been such a thing that people have talked about. I think when you give a day off, like, there is definitely an advantage to that. But I think it makes it more exciting, makes it more interesting when it's like there's a definite, clear potential for more. I felt like last year's grand finals were so disappointing because it was a 4-map sweep when the really exciting stuff happened the day before, and then grand finals was kind of whatever. So I like this change. I think it's a good move, and I do think it'll be really fun to see everything happen in person with multiple games happening in the LAN setup with fans in attendance. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to see it. So that's all the stories for this week. If there's anything you want to read more about, as always, I will link everything I talk about in the description. I have not done a video like this, really in-depth news kind of thing in a while. Shout out to the Overwatch Weekly days, of course. So maybe with Overwatch 2 coming out, maybe we'll go back to Overwatch Weekly. Maybe Overwatch Weekly will make a comeback. But for now, that is it for this episode and this video. Let me know your thoughts on anything I talked about in the comments down below. And if you want more videos like this in the future, comment down below about that. Also, like and subscribe. Helps out a lot and makes it easy for me to tell that you're interested in content like this. But that's going to be all for today. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.